The court session resumed at 9:30 a.m. in Pihajoki District Court, with both the prosecuting lawyer and Simon Ekpa and his legal team present. Tensions rose dramatically during the trial. The prosecution introduced their fourth witness, an officer from Finland's National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, who claimed to have conducted a 4-month investigation on Simon Ekpa's digital footprint. The fourth witness presented Exhibit 1, containing Simon Ekpa's tweets and social media activity, including a November 6, 2024 tweet addressed to the Finnish president, where Simon Ekpa referred to himself as the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic government in exile, seeking recognition of the secessionist group. The fourth witness argued Simon Ekpa was not just a content creator, but a political leader inciting unrest in Nigeria through calls to action, further supported by the signature on the tweet and its official tone and language. Simon Ekpa's lawyer demanded the right to cross-examine the fourth witness, arguing the need to expose inconsistencies, clarify ambiguities, and challenge the fourth witness's credibility. The judge granted the request, and Simon Ekpa personally conducted the cross-examination, confronting the fourth witness's claim that he was a political instigator rather than an entertainer or media personality. Simon Ekpa maintained his innocence, asserting that he is a content creator who makes videos on news, politics, and music for public awareness and entertainment, and that his posts are satirical and thought-provoking, not inciting violence. The fourth witness countered that Simon Ekpa's influence over his audience is dangerous, and pointed to social media statements like, "Join the movement for freedom, we will not be silenced," as direct evidence of leadership, not just content creation. Simon Ekpa strongly denied that claim, insisting that his content is focused on social and cultural commentary, and he is not accountable for how followers interpret or act upon his posts. As the cross-examination became heated, with raised voices and emotional tension, the judge had to intervene multiple times to keep order. At one point, Simon Ekpa nearly lashed out physically, reportedly almost slapping the fourth witness, before regaining control, prompting the courtroom to descend into chaos momentarily before being calmed by the judge. The fourth witness presented Simon Ekpa's social media posts as evidence, claiming they used coded language, calls to action, and consistent self-identification as a leader, all of which demonstrated intent to influence and mobilize followers, which visibly agitated the courtroom. The judge intervened to calm tensions, threatening to adjourn the session if the courtroom became unruly again. Simon Ekpa appeared physically angry during this exchange, prompting further caution from the judge. The fourth witness cited a specific tweet from October 10, 2024, where Simon Ekpa claimed to have sacrificed his political career for Biafra self-determination and chose Biafra liberation over participating in elections, and asked Simon Ekpa to explain how it did not amount to incitement. Simon Ekpa defended himself, claiming his words were taken out of context and that his activism was peaceful and focused on self-determination, not violence. The fourth witness challenged Simon Ekpa's denial, pointing to the influence of his rhetoric on followers involved in violent actions. Simon Ekpa maintained that he condemns violence and cannot be held responsible for others' decisions. When asked about the term Biafra liberation and its links to extremism, Simon Ekpa clarified that his vision was based on diplomacy, peaceful protests, and international recognition, denying any ties to terrorism. The fourth witness brought up a controversial tweet from October 2024, in which Simon Ekpa announced a ban on federal building projects in Imo State, calling the Nigerian government terrorists. Simon Ekpa claimed the statement was metaphorical or satirical, not literal. The fourth witness dismissed Simon Ekpa's figurative defenses, arguing the language was direct, inflammatory, and could incite violence, especially since it was widely circulated and referenced rebuilding by a Biafran government. Simon Ekpa continued defending his language, calling it hyperbole or freedom of speech, insisting he did not intend violence, but the fourth witness emphasized how dangerous such rhetoric could be, especially in a volatile region. He then presented a damning tweet from August 24, 2024, where Simon Ekpa declared a 30-day sit-at-home mandate in the southeastern region, signed by him personally. Simon Ekpa struggled to respond, and his lawyer notably failed to intervene, which many in the courtroom saw as a critical blow to Simon Ekpa's defense. The Biafran government announced a 30-day lockdown of Nigerian institutions in parts of Biafra territory from August 28 to September 26, 2024, in response to ongoing violence, abductions, and attacks on Christians and Biafrans. Simon Ekpa publicly supported the demand for the total withdrawal of Nigerian security forces from Biafra land and the release of detained Biafran citizens, including Nnamdi Kanu, whom he described as symbolic of Biafra oppression. During his testimony, the fourth witness questioned Simon Ekpa about his tweets, suggesting they might incite unrest. Simon Ekpa defended them as calls for awareness, not violence, stressing the urgency of the situation and need for strong language. Simon Ekpa's lawyer remained passive during the intense questioning until late into the exchange, finally intervening to argue that Simon Ekpa's social media posts were political commentary, not incitement. The fourth witness introduced a document stating that a faction known as Ohanaeze Ndigbo had placed a $100,000 bounty on Simon Ekpa in July 2023, accusing him of inciting violence and declaring a second Biafran war. Simon Ekpa distanced himself from the individual referenced in the bounty notice, claimed misidentification, and reiterated his commitment to non-violent activism and peaceful awareness campaigns. The fourth witness pressed on, asking if Simon Ekpa's statements could worsen tensions. Simon Ekpa maintained that while language can be misread, his intentions are peaceful, focused on rights and justice for Biafran people. In closing remarks, Simon Ekpa emphasized a renewed commitment to peaceful dialogue, vowing to stop using figurative language in future statements and advocating non-violent resolution. The judge acknowledged both Simon Ekpa and the fourth witness testimonies, confirmed the sensitivity of the matter, and scheduled a continuation of the trial for a future date without immediate judgment. It was a chilly morning in the quiet Finnish town of Pihajoki when the district court resumed proceedings in one of the most controversial trials currently drawing international attention. The courtroom, though modest in size, was packed with journalists, observers, legal practitioners, and human rights activists. The case of Simon Njoku Ekpa, a man who refers to himself as the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic government in exile, had now reached a dramatic and volatile phase. What was expected to be a routine cross-examination suddenly spiraled into emotional chaos that left everyone in the room rattled and tense. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the judge, a stern yet calm middle-aged woman who had managed to control the previous hearings with firm professionalism, called the court into session. On one side sat the prosecuting attorney, flanked by two legal assistants and a representative from the Finnish Ministry of Justice. On the other side, Simon Njoku Ekpa appeared composed but alert, dressed in a dark blue suit. He sat beside his legal team, including his chief counsel, a Finnish human rights lawyer known for defending politically sensitive clients. The air was stiff with anticipation as the prosecution announced they would be introducing their fourth witness, a digital forensic investigator from Finland's National Bureau of Investigation. This fourth witness, whose identity was partially shielded due to the sensitive nature of the testimony, approached the stand with an air of confidence and purpose. According to his introductory statement, he had been assigned to lead a 4-month investigation into the online activities of Simon Njoku Ekpa. His role, as he explained in court, was to assess whether Simon Njoku Ekpa's social media communications could be classified as politically inflammatory, inciting violence, or contributing to unrest in Nigeria, particularly in the southeastern region where Biafran activism has gained momentum. The fourth witness submitted a thick file labeled Exhibit 1, a compilation of Simon Njoku Ekpa's tweets, video uploads, and social media engagements over the past year. He began by referencing a post from November 6, 2024, addressed to the Finnish president. In this tweet, Simon Njoku Ekpa introduced himself as the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic government in exile and urged the Finnish government to recognize Biafra's independence as a sovereign state. The fourth witness read the tweet aloud and described its language as formal, authoritative, and unmistakably official in tone. His claim was that this was not a mere expression of opinion, but rather an act of political declaration with potential international implications. The courtroom was silent as the witness continued to dissect the content. He described how Simon Njoku Ekpa's online presence was far more structured and targeted than that of an ordinary social media personality. According to the witness, Simon Njoku Ekpa's communications were crafted with what appeared to be deliberate political strategy. He claimed that the choice of language, the timing of posts, and the specific references to calls for action were proof that Simon Njoku Ekpa was not just creating content, but mobilizing people under the banner of a separatist movement. Simon Njoku Ekpa's lawyer immediately stood and requested to cross-examine the fourth witness, asserting that the statements being made were highly subjective and painted Simon Njoku Ekpa in an unfair light. After a brief deliberation, the judge granted the request, and in a surprising turn of events, Simon Njoku Ekpa himself stepped forward to lead the cross-examination. It was a rare but legally permissible move in Finnish courts, and it marked the beginning of a tense, emotionally charged exchange that would soon push the boundaries of courtroom decorum. Standing just a few feet away from the witness stand, Simon Njoku Ekpa began with a calm but pointed tone. He asked the witness whether he considered himself an expert in African politics, particularly the complex relationship between Nigeria and the Biafran region. The witness admitted that his expertise was technical and analytical, focused on digital communications and their potential social impact rather than geopolitical nuances. Simon Njoku Ekpa pounced on that admission, suggesting that without a full understanding of the context behind his words, the witness's interpretation was flawed at best and dangerous at worst. The exchange intensified as Simon Njoku Ekpa repeatedly challenged the interpretation of his words, insisting that he was a content creator, nothing more, nothing less. He told the court that his online posts were meant to spark thought, raise awareness, and provoke peaceful dialogue on political issues, not to ignite violence or rebellion. He highlighted his videos that included music, satire, and commentary, arguing that his entire style was closer to that of a news analyst or cultural commentator, not a political agitator. But the fourth witness remained firm. He produced additional tweets, one of which read, "Join the movement for freedom. We will not be silenced." He described the tone and timing of this message, posted just before a violent protest in southeastern Nigeria, as more than coincidental. He said it was indicative of a leader giving marching orders to his followers. Simon Njoku Ekpa's face hardened. His voice grew louder. He accused the witness of twisting his words and treating metaphorical or symbolic language as literal commands. What happened next caused the courtroom to nearly break into disorder. As the argument escalated, Simon Njoku Ekpa reportedly made a sudden movement that appeared to suggest he was about to strike the witness. Observers described it as a split second of raw anger, a clenched fist, a forward step, but just as quickly, Simon Njoku Ekpa stopped himself, exhaled deeply, and looked toward the judge, who had already begun pounding her gavel. Her voice rang out, firm and authoritative, demanding order. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, some audible gasps, and several people rising to their feet. Security officers stepped forward, but were signaled to stand down as calm returned. The judge issued a stern warning. She said that any further outbursts, verbal or physical, would lead to the immediate adjournment of the trial and possible charges of contempt of court. Simon Njoku Ekpa nodded solemnly, his demeanor once again composed, but the intensity in his eyes was unmistakable. The fourth witness resumed his testimony. He presented another controversial tweet dated October 10, 2024. In this tweet, Simon Njoku Ekpa declared that he had sacrificed his political ambitions to pursue the liberation of Biafra, even if it meant not participating in democratic elections. The witness argued that this statement demonstrated Simon Njoku Ekpa's rejection of legal frameworks in favor of a parallel government system. Simon Njoku Ekpa countered that the statement was a philosophical stance, not an invitation to dismantle institutions. He claimed that choosing activism over political office was a legitimate and peaceful path, not an incitement to disorder. The judge listened intently as the two sides went back and forth. When asked about another statement in which Simon Njoku Ekpa allegedly banned federal projects in Imo State and labeled the Nigerian government as terrorists, Simon Njoku Ekpa said the language was metaphorical. He described it as hyperbole, a rhetorical tool used in protest literature throughout history. But the fourth witness was unrelenting. He pointed out that such statements, when made by someone with considerable influence, could be perceived as direct threats or calls for resistance. Things took a turn when the witness introduced a tweet from August 24, 2024, in which Simon Ekpa announced a 30-day sit-at-home order across parts of southeastern Nigeria. The tweet was signed with his name and title, giving it an official stamp. When asked about this, Simon Ekpa struggled to provide a clear answer. His lawyer, who had been largely silent during the heated exchanges, did not immediately object or provide clarification. For a brief moment, it appeared that Simon Ekpa's defense had suffered a major blow. The prosecution emphasized the context of that tweet. According to them, it was part of a broader campaign by the Biafra Republic government in exile to disrupt Nigerian institutions and compel international recognition. The sit-at-home order, they claimed, was not just symbolic. It had real-life consequences. Schools were closed, businesses were paralyzed, and there were reports of violence from both activists and security forces. The court was reminded of incidents where people were attacked for refusing to observe the sit-at-home directive, although Simon Ekpa denied any link to those actions. Simon Ekpa responded that the lockdown was a symbolic act of civil disobedience in response to ongoing violence, abductions, and religious persecution in the region. He referenced the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu, the former leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, describing him as a political prisoner and symbol of the Biafran struggle. Simon Ekpa said his actions were meant to draw attention to injustices and advocate for peaceful solutions, not to inspire conflict. The fourth witness was not convinced. He referred to a July 2023 document that allegedly revealed a $100,000 bounty placed on Simon Nyoku Ekpa by the Ohanaeze Ndigbo, a socio-cultural group. According to the document, the group accused Simon Ekpa of declaring a second Biafran war. Simon Ekpa denied the accusation and distanced himself from the claim. He said it was a case of mistaken identity or politically motivated defamation. As the session drew to a close, both sides gave brief remarks. Simon Ekpa, visibly emotional but articulate, said he now realized how figurative language could be misinterpreted. He promised to choose his words more carefully and emphasized that his only goal was to seek justice through peaceful dialogue and international advocacy. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.